Das Fire Bubble Diesel. Hey there, this is Neil DeGrade, and today I'm doing something very different. I'm going to do a director's commentary, a writer's commentary, and composer's commentary on Queen of the Night. So if you have not seen the film, press pause now, find the link in the description to Queen of the Night, the movie. You're going to want to go watch that first. But if you have watched it, you're going to gain some extra insight on some behind the scenes information, like how we filmed things, how we did some of the effects. You're going to learn about what I was thinking as a film composer. And hopefully I won't be giving away too much of the story as far as like the sort of the symbolic elements of that story. I want you to figure those out for yourself, but I might be able to help you make some connections too when you watch this. So if you want to hear some stories about how we filmed it, about the actors themselves, the film score, and some of the technology used and some of the techniques used in Queen of the Night, stay tuned because we are about to start. So without any further ado, let me start up the film and begin to talk. All right, first off, I'm going to thank Pete Mitchell. He helped me with the visual effects on this movie. He was my visual effects supervisor, helped me put together these titles. I made this logo. He helped animate it. Okay, so we got Pete Mitchell out of the way there. So, okay, so this is kind of a last-minute decision. This was not in the script to help people frame up that this story is happening from the perspective of the moon. So we're zooming into the Earth specifically from the moon. So you have to ask yourself, who's watching or what is watching the Earth? Now, these are all simple 2D animations here. Some elements, some photography, some clouds that were made by Chad Nuss. He did a lot of the sky work for us, and Pete animated that. All right, so this is on our, the background here is from our farm in Kentucky that was composited in. And this is myself and my youngest, Ransom Stone. Now, there's going to be a parallel between this scene and the very last scene of the movie, so you need to pay attention to that. So, Penelope Graves, there's a song on the soundtrack that should give you some background information on Oliver's mother and Huxley's mother who has died. Other thing to pay attention to is the name choices, the way they sound when you say them and what their etymology is, and you're going to learn something. So scenes like this, we're not walking downhill. We're on a flat floor in a studio, so I'm just leaning backwards and we're tilting the camera. That's how we get this effect. Again, backgrounds are composites of Kate's dad's farm in Kentucky and some stuff I drew digitally in Photoshop. So obviously there's no door on set. All right, this song, Memento Mori, the children's vocals are my children and Kate and I, and this idea here, there's no juxtaposition in this message of the Memento Mori, remember you will die, and the fact that we're reminded of that every night because we have something like a death when we lose consciousness and fall asleep and surrender. Okay, so there's a little lantern on the side and the glasses. The glasses and the lantern play a big role in the film, and I don't explain it in the screenplay or the script or in the film, but if you think about it for a while, you might understand what they mean. The jacket I'm wearing I've had forever, by the way. You'll see that in Dirtpool Robin's photos as far back as 2007. That was kind of fun to bring that in. I've got some Dirtpool Robin's Easter eggs in the movie. Now, my son's hair is blonde, and so we're dyeing it. We dyed my hair here. This is not the first scene we shot in the film. This is actually 3 weeks after we began shooting. I had to lose weight and dye my hair and get trimmed up to look younger. Also, we're doing an overture of a song you're about to hear, Gambit of the Night. So you're familiar with that. It's a technique people use in musicals as well. So the song sounds familiar once you hear it for the first time, sung. Now, this moment here, the music, this is a theme I use over and over again. It's, if you want to look it up, if you're a music buff, it's a Tristan chord I'm playing with here and spreading out. The Tristan chord has this kind of magical quality that it can point in a lot of directions, but you don't know where it's going to go and where it's pointing. So it has this sense of mystery. So right now he's just standing on a set and we're creating the shadows on set on him. So it'll line up with the window later. And there's Soleil, my middle daughter, second oldest daughter, kind of in the middle. Now, if you think about what's happening here, like he's above, he's looking down towards the earth. He sees something he can't identify, and he uses a lens to see it. That's an important theme in this film. Which lens are you looking through, and the ability to see. Okay, so that theme right there we use again later in the film. This title shot I got to talk about. I asked Pete Mitchell, who was working on the visual effects, I said, hey, can you make me a mock-up of the title and we'll make a real one later? And this one came out so good that his first shot at it that we kept it. I was absolutely in love with it. Okay, more of those backgrounds from Kentucky. Hey, there I am. My name looks good on the screen, doesn't it? Remember, you can't really Google me because Neil deGrasse Tyson will come up first. It's very sad. Another thing worth contemplating: why flowers? What's the deal with the flowers? What does that have? What does this have to do with the story? I try not to explain too much of the Moon Girls and the Queen of the Night in the film. I try to leave it in a place where it's going to be hard to interpret, because that's part of what they are. There's this divine feminine spirit that is a great mystery to us in this story. Or it has an aspect of divinity. I don't want to say it's completely divine at all. So, okay, this climb here. So think of the lantern and think of Graves' Tower, or think of his rocket, right? Because this scene gets paralleled later in the movie. I've always believed that a good prologue kind of gives away the story in a way, but you don't realize it until you've seen the whole film that it did that. So you go back and you watch and you're like, oh, there's this ascent into the heavens, and he's got this light he's taking with him. Want to give a shout out to this rock work here. The rock work is actually done by Kate's father, Kate, my wife, and we shot his rocks. He's an incredible rock sculptor, and that's worth noting. I want to give him that shout out. So those skies you're seeing, and that's those were designed by Chad Nuss and animated by Pete Mitchell and myself. Now they're climbing around on green blocks on the set here. Those rocks are obviously not on set. And we built a lot of different green things to climb around on. And also this film, you might notice if you're an art buff, from that same period of time the film is supposed to be taking place in. Maxfield Parrish was a wonderful artist, and I'm inspired greatly by him and his look. So that's actually Ransom laying on the floor. He's laying on a floor here, and we've tilted the camera so it looks like he's hanging on a rock. And again, that's more of Kate's dad's rock work. Dust and smoke and things like that are at later. But also pay attention to where the lantern fell, because later in the movie, the rocket lands in a similar location, might be the same exact location. Okay, also worth noting here is the actual quality of the skies and the environment. That the heavens, the skies, become more realistic as the film goes along, and they become more obtainable and less of a far-off vision. So Jonathan Peugeot actually helped me with the script on the editing side of things. I consulted him to help me kind of drive the symbolic elements of the story further. And also, one of the things he did that was just kind of an afterthought was he helped me tighten up these slates, the dialogue on it, because silent films really can slow down when you have to do a lot of reading. So we try to condense the lines as much as possible to where we only said and introduced what absolutely needed to be said and introduced. Capricorn. If you don't know what a Capricorn is, look it up, or you can see it on the bottom of the Zeppelin. One of my favorite shots in this scene right there. That came out better than I imagined. This is an important thing, myths. Are myths really just a myth, or is there a way to look at a good myth and see how it's showing you some aspect of reality? I think that's important. Kind of a lost art in modern times. Okay, more with the enigma of the storytelling here. I left options open. Why did this storm start? Was it that she gave him the Capricorn scale? Was it that, like she says, she's late and she has to unveil? And what does her unveiling mean? And what does that have to do with the moon? So again, more skies, animated by Pete Mitchell, artwork by Chad Nuss. If you notice, the kids' clothes are blowing around. Like Ransom's hair is just glued down, so it's barely moving. But we had these massive fans on set, and because it was a silent film, we didn't have to worry about the sound they made. And then to create the storm and wind later, we added different elements. And so that tree there, I think Pete shot in Denver, Colorado, and he used the blue sky as a blue screen to cut it out and give it this kind of ethereal, animated look. But it's actually a real tree. I'm gonna drink something here. I'm old enough to stay. Let me see what you mean. All right, this line right here. Some things no one is old enough to see. Now go. We don't think of the world that way. We think we can do anything we want. We think we can just make transhumans and it's fine. But the idea that some things should be off limits if we want to keep people healthy and happy and purpose driven, you must leave them alone. Okay, Oliver, listening. Okay, so there's those elements of smoke and stuff in the air. Those again are all added in post. Some of the leaves and smokes are behind the character, and some of it happens in front of the character to kind of help glue them into their virtual environment. But we're using things to cast shadows on the character on the set too. That was important to us. So I changed some of the score here from the episodic version I released earlier. I really wanted to get across more the idea that he was smitten, like he's falling in love here. But now, if you notice, he's on the ground and he's looking up into the heavens with the lens. There's some handmade animation from Pete Mitchell in this scene mixed with some stuff we do with computers. Okay, this is a callback to the theme falling upwards into love that appears later in the film. So really pay attention to where themes appear and how they connect across the movie if you kind of want to understand the way the film is hyperlinked. His eyes grow darker there, just a little bit darker. Many, many years later. Now we meet older Oliver. Maybe some people didn't catch on to that at first, but I gave you some clues. There's Graves Tower. It's the 3D model designed by Pete Mitchell in the city, and the 3D Capricorn that's Zeppelin was designed by Chad Nuss, and Sophie James helped us model it in Blender. So Derek Kiner, we can talk about him for a minute. Such a talented musician, such a talented actor. He's just talented in every way. The world needs more of Derek Kiner, and we need more people like him. Now, if you pause the newspaper before it blurs out, you're going to get some backstory to Queen of the Night. That's all purposefully added, and some of it's actually the lyrics to Babylon, just a little portion of that in the beginning. Oliver Graves. The future is Oliver Graves. Like, listen to the sound of that name and what it sounds like. Okay, that's Clay Cook right there, the Zeppelin pilot, not an actor normally. Did a wonderful job in this film. He's the 2D photographer. You'll see some of his photos in the credits. He's an incredible photographer and just a splendid person. Him and his wife are really, really people I love to be around. Yeah, these shots of the city, Pete nailed it. We had some dialogue going back and forth. Now, the background of that Zeppelin, I built the interior in Photoshop with some composited photos from the city of St. Augustine. Now, this is inside of Flagler College. You're actually seeing there in the background some real blueprints from Kate's dad we borrowed. More borrowing. There's the Biscuit Boys as Pete on the right and TJ on the left. And they're my crew on the set as well. Now, you notice something to do with Obsession. There's Capricorn things everywhere. Now, I didn't mean to miss Tiffany's entrance there, but I'm talking fast. There's a lot to talk about. Tiffany is an incredible actress. Just do a pass of the film where you just watch her. And she had the toughest role, I think, overall, because she had to convey a lot of inner monologue, and it had to be really clear what was happening or her character would fall apart. And so she had the most acting experience in the film, and I trusted her with these things. Now in comes McTavish, played by Eric McAllister. Eric McAllister is probably one of the most vibrant people I've ever met. He is incredibly likable. It's like he's a constant jubilee to be around Eric. He's got a terrific vocabulary. Really helped the energy on the set. If you don't like Eric, I meet someone who didn't like Eric, I would be very suspicious of that person, because he's one of the most likable people in the history of mankind, or my life, I could say. So there's another aspect here about the actors, is that this is silent film acting. So we're kind of doing a hybrid between silent film acting and modern acting. And I'll explain more of that in a second. Because here we do a callback in case you had missed that Oliver Graves is the young boy from scene 1. We kind of let you know it, and we help you understand that this is the Capricorn scale from the first scene. As you notice the water reflecting on his face. So what I was saying about the actors and the style of acting is that we had to pay homage to silent films, but also we didn't want it to be as we weren't as forced to make it as like what we might think of as cheesy now as they would have had to then, because the projectors and the film was less clear. But my actors, since they're not talking really, and we don't hear them talking, we have catch faces instead of catch phrases. So you see a couple of repetitive actions by the different characters and little fidgets they do, and little idiosyncrasies that are they crafted themselves or I helped develop, and they kept as part of the character. So this is one of the scenes right here where, like, Tiffany, this could have played off as like, is there an abusive relationship with Oliver? Does he make her uncomfortable? Is this just a discomfort with the boss, or is she perhaps smitten? And because we wanted to get across the idea of smitten, that was a very subtle difference, but Tiffany plays it perfectly. And I really like what Derek does here with the way he decides to show the son's a nuisance. So one of his rivals in the story. Okay, that's where it helped to have a green floor, man, right there. We're shooting down at the green floor and compositing these things later. Tiffany gets this idea across perfectly that she's uncomfortable with the heights. And what does that mean? That's not an arbitrary character moment. I mean, she's a little more down to earth. Okay, this is more St. Augustine. That's the outside of the Leitner Museum. And we've, of course, added this logo and the Zeppelin to it. This is the inside of the Leitner Museum. This is their empty pool. It used to be a resort. And so none of these people are here. We just took photography and added it later. And then as I added the chalkboard to the scene, Derek did all of his own chalkboard art here and the chalkboard art for his debate opponent that he is. From what we know of Oliver, he seems to be lying to them. Okay, that's my dad. We'll talk more about him later. That's Chris Jackson as Professor Munster with his theories of the moon's cheese. And he's being mocked here. Chris Jackson's actually like this big handsome guy in real life, and I liked playing him kind of the smaller, kind of nerdier professor character. We actually made him smaller in the frame to kind of make him look a little more pathetic. Radiation levels proved to be the Earth's only satellite, proved to be uninhabitable. Important fact in modern times. So again, none of these figures are there. Some of them are digital creations, 3D actors, and some of them are the real actors and extras in the set. There's a full look at the chalkboard art. Okay, we have Mike and Trisha here as our reporters. That's my dad playing the mayor. He nailed his take so fast. He was on set for such a short period of time. But I really like the way Eric played this to show there's some sort of rivalry, some sort of problem that he's fending off from the mayor and Oliver. Now, Trisha Jewell, she's, I think she was a model for one point in her life, and she had she could not stop flirting with the camera, and we just went with it. It actually turned out to be a great quirk for her character, especially in these psychedelic scenes coming up. So as far as music score here, when you saw Trisha and she was asking the question, I had the piano playing a pattern of sevens, which feels very unresolved rhythmically. And then as soon as it cuts to Oliver, it starts going into sixes, more like the question's about to be answered. And that's an important question. This is an important thing we just learned about Oliver's character at that point. Okay, so here's the mayor enacting his plan. We get to the bottom of what he really wants to know and what the big secret is with the tower. Mike nails this. He reminds me of a character really from like a 30s, 40s film. There's a video game, LA Noire. He reminds me of a lot of the characters in that, if you've ever played it. Eric standing in between, a protective layer between Oliver Graves and the world and politics. Oliver's a secretive figure, and a lot of these people like him in real life are. Okay, more St. Augustine. That's the actual Treasury building in downtown St. Augustine, the Treasury of Plutus. You might want to look up who the heck Plutus is if you want to know more about it. Again, this is Dave Moyson on the left, the taller one, playing Prue Denton. And Lucretius is played by Adam Elliott, both great friends of mine in real life. We really exaggerated the height difference here with giant shoes on Dave. And there's this yin yang element. One tall, one short. One's got dark clothes. One's got light clothes. One has light hair. One has dark hair. You understand it? Okay, so this is what I'm talking about watching Tiffany. Like, she is carrying a lot of the energy in the scene without ever having the attention drawn to her. You know, we understand the awkwardness and what's at stake here if we watch her. If you could hear the audio of this scene, we are dying laughing. There's a number of spots. I might point them out to you, but oh my gosh, like when that thing went to Dave's mouth, we were dying. So again, this is the last we're going to see of the Capricorn scale. Like, there's a thing called MacGuffins in script writing, and this is a little bit of that function, but kind of a split between like the George Lucas idea and the Alfred Hitchcock idea. If you ever want to look up what a MacGuffin is, I'm kind of bridging the gap between those two ideas. Another callback. I want you to feel the tension here. All right, that's my youngest daughter, Amadea, my third child. Her intensity was amazing. I shouldn't have been surprised, but again, I was surprised at how easily scenes were done. And there's Trisha. That's what I was talking about with flirting with the camera. Okay, that check was a pain in the butt. I made that in Photoshop, and Pete mapped it to this board we had on set, and he nailed it, but it was not. There a lot of the corners were cut off that we used to track, and so it was pretty hard to track. And kudos to Pete for sticking with it and getting it to look right. Notice there's a lot of themes of electricity in our stories. I think it's an important thing to contemplate, the meaning of electricity. This scene is very inspired by Willy Wonka's, with Gene Wilder and his tunnel trip on the boat from the movie. I really wanted that kind of old school, like, creepy psychedelic moment. Hey, guess what? More St. Augustine. That's the outside of Santa Monica Hotel with some elements added. Little Christmas lights coming on. Look up the word La Poche if you don't know what it means. Oh, a bunch of my friends there on set. I'll tell you about them if I get the chance. Here's when we find out what year it is. But again, this is a weird thing to bring up, but the film is actually supposed to be made earlier than 1927. This is the director's vision of the future in this film. So it's supposed to be shot around like 1912. Okay, you'll notice all the lights in the background, like they're not really on set, so I have to make them dip out as people pass them. So it's like acting like it's really being captured and blooming in a camera lens. So you can see it as Dave walks by. Kind of dips out. Again, the artwork is carefully chosen from that era. There's this building has sort of, we're moving into the Art Deco period, but this building is a little bit of a throwback, so it's a little more Art Nouveau. And I'm using the art of Mucha and Klimt and some other people from an earlier era. I love how, like, Lucretius, the acquisition element of finance, is so frustrated with the prudence. Okay, there's Tiffany here. That's what I was talking about before. Sorry, in the background, that's art of Mucha, Alphonse Mucha, incredible Art Nouveau artist. Tiffany's a delightful person, delightful actress. She was an incredible element on set. She's just rose to professionalism of the entire cast. Now, hey, I want you to know, Die Hard's a Christmas movie, but Queen of the Night is a Christmas movie, as you can tell. December 22nd. Date's important. If you want to look up December 22nd, 1927, there's a parallel happening this year to that year. Okay, those hors d'oeuvres Kate made these things, and they were delicious, and we ate them all. So later in the set, we had to like find Ritz crackers and stuff because we accidentally ate the props because they were good. Tiffany plays that perfectly, and so does Derek. I mean, their lack of chemistry and chemistry was incredible. All right, this can be confusing because there's spotlights here, but I need the spotlights. But even though it's really like the sun's setting still, it's not completely nighttime, but it's a darker, smokier, foggier city, so they can be seen. But as we see, the sun has not set yet. Annette Stanrod and Tody Stanrod, friends of ours, played extras. They did a wonderful job, took direction incredibly well, and exceeded my expectations like everyone on the film. This is an important scene here. I'm referencing, we're about to explore a problem that was occurring in the 1920s in this. So we see Oliver has his own problem, his own obsession, but the people who are left without the proper guidance and leadership also start to dive into the lower obsessions, the passions of their own body. Now, obviously, these things were not glowing on set. That was added in post. And I think that was like, it was kind of nasty. It was like this coffee and water mixture we made to give it a little opacity. Okay, so now smoky basement, Speakeasy style. And there's Laura Coram. She's our costume designer on the left, and she did an incredible job with the budget we gave her. And she also did an incredible job as one of the flappers. Had to talk her into that one. And on the right is Lindsay Willinger. She's the shorter of the flappers, and she actually has been a friend of ours since 2007. She sang background vocals with Dirt Poor Robins in the Toronto Film Festival in 2007 and did some work with us then. Of course, the joke there is the shorter guy picks the taller girl. That worked out nicely because the music was made after the film was edited. So when things like that could happen, it was really nice to make the two elements feel linked. In case you had forgotten, there was a rivalry between the Sun and Oliver Graves. Something troubling him about light. The young watcher appears when there's flashes of light too. The young girl from the moon. This really feels like a classic scene. Tiffany's just got a classic look. She's got a different look in our film. She had like COVID a few weeks before, I think, and had this like swelling reaction. So she was like having to ice her face, but it was perfect because it gave her more of this like Betty Boop like look from the era. So it's like, I think she's actually just a shape-shifting magician. And she did that on purpose to make it work better in my film. So thanks, Tiff. Nicole Jackson right there. That's Chris Jackson's wife, who's the waitress. And I had to put her in the film. Her hair, her eyes, her face, everything was perfect. Again, I don't know if she's ever acted in anything before, but there was like, she was just a natural. I think my friend circle they're a little crazy anyway. So they had no idea what they're getting into here. When we were making this film, they had no idea like what it was going to look like, and we're just running around in this green screen laughing and having fun. Okay, so this right here, this is Dave Moyson, who plays Prudent. That's his wife he's looking at there. So that's kind of a little fun and funny for us to do that little inside joke. Dude, they brought the smoke upstairs. They're bringing hell up from the basement. Josh Brown is the musician playing trombone. He's played a lot of trombone on our records. We have Dave Zimmer playing drums. I've played music with all the musicians who are playing the band, which is kind of fun. Marina Kanishi Cuffert. I think she has a different last name now. She just got married. Sorry, Marina. She's playing the violin. She did a lot of violin on Dirt Poor Robins records. And there's the sun setting. And then Tyler Anderson is the guitar player. And Tyler's a good friend of mine. He's also a production assistant, helped us build the green screen. And he's a wonderful guitar player and producer himself. All right, there's my Biscuit Boys. I'll have to tell the backstory of the Biscuit Boys sometimes and why they're credited as such in the film's laden with backstory that I never tell people, but I want you to get the sense that you've kind of fallen into a thought out world. Okay, so my mom is there. She plays both parts. Two parts in this. She plays the grandmother and the wife of the mayor. I mean, how good is Dave Moyson at this character? You would never know it from knowing him in real life. This is not what he's like at all. I love that reaction too. The wig comes off and he thinks he's naked. It's a joke, but it actually says something important about people's idiosyncratic decisions and identity. That was Tyler playing guitar, by the way. And there's Marina. Adam Elliott's face is absolutely wonderful. His eyes tell a much bigger story. Now, all these moments are scripted in the film, except for this one, except for the whole I think this might have been Derek Kiner's idea about him throwing something and the powder exploding from the wig. So I got a bottle of powder and I hid behind Adam as he threw something at him, and I squeezed it off so it went flying into the air. So that's real powder in the air. Afraid to touch him. Isn't this the thing in like romantic comedies where it's just like if nobody speaks up ever and it just drives you nuts as you watch them? Like she just never really tells him. It's like she's ready to tell him, but there's always some kind of distraction to stop her from telling him. Maybe she could have saved him. Maybe she would have been rejected. Who knows? So I had to cut out the lyrics in this part of the song because I didn't want to have you listening to lyrics while you were reading title cards. And it worked well. I don't like the woodwinds I added, so. As a last-minute shot, I did not like the shot that was in there, and because the moon's about to become a new moon, and so I needed to fill that at some point. And I wanted to get the context of the city. All right, you might want to contemplate why the reporters or why these lights appear and the girl from the moon appears at certain points in the story. There's Dave Zimmer, a character and a great drummer. Kept trying to direct when he was on set. I had to stop him. He's so funny. Oh, that scene with Dave in the drinking, that's in the script with the riding like a pony. And my gosh, that was another one. Like Derek and I fell down on the ground laughing. Someone has footage of that, but we were like, I don't know, that hurt my ribs. Hey, that's a guitar amp of mine that I turned into a piece of medical equipment. So that's a little inside joke for anybody who's been following Paul Robbins for a while. So this is the very first scene we shot in the film. There's a little callback here to Memento Mori, like a little subtle callback to it. And that's, okay, so that's our kid's headmaster at their school they went to growing up. His name is Lance Harris. He was perfect. Has some acting background as well, and a great singer. His family is a real delight. So anyway, this scene was the first one we filmed. And so I kind of like just went crazy with food, like ate as much as I wanted for a month, grew my beard out, grew my hair out a little bit. And so that's all real beard. And so I could look older. And then, my plan was just to lose a bunch of weight. 3 weeks later, dye my hair, trim up, and then film it. All right. This might ruin the scene a little bit for you here, but we could not get through this. Derek is like right. You never realize how awkwardly close people are in some scenes in films. And like, he's just holding my head and I'm trying to die and be sick. But not so sick you can't tell my mouth is moving or I'm looking at him. So it was like kind of a hybrid, like a silent film style. Like a silent film movie acting, they indicate what's going on more than they try to show you like subtle and genuine emotion most of the time, because the technology couldn't handle it there. You wouldn't have seen it, wouldn't have translated to an audience. Now, all the choirs you're hearing are me and Kate. Like we're just layering vocals at different distances from the mics, modifying her voice so it sounded like a larger group. Sometimes up to 24 tracks to pull off some of these choir tracks. Derek played the scene great. Man, he was dying laughing looking at me like half the time and just holding still. This is an early 1920s version of Neuralink he's using to keep his father alive. Doesn't work. All right, this is a callback. You might have noticed this theme earlier when he's selling off the Capricorn scale for the first time. He's giving up a gift. He's losing something. Here comes Lance. Now I got to talk about Courtney Anderson in the background. Courtney Anderson is the line producer on the film. She kept me organized. She is a very difficult thing to make a film and keep it on schedule. And Courtney did that. And Courtney also is our nurse. Check her out here. She's coming up. We're going to see. Yep, there she is. Perfect look, perfect actions. Really great job, Courtney. Here returns my daughter Amadea, the youngest moon girl. All of her remembers. Okay, so all these lightning bolts obviously added later, smoke. There were different phases of the amp to look destroyed. That's a two-dimensional version of the Zeppelin there, just being animated on a straight line. Now you notice the skies are getting more realistic and they're a little less cartoony. Okay, that statue. People ask me this all the time. Who's that statue? I will tell you now. Francis Bacon. Contemplate the meaning of what it means to the secret of Graves Tower is hiding beneath Francis Bacon. Now, obviously, there's no hole in the floor here, so we have to cut before he actually drops into it. Pete did the animation and the balloon there outside Graves Tower. I love that shot. This is Derek climbing across the floor. We're adding the rungs on the ladder later and all the artwork. He's just scooting around on the floor on his knees without knee pads. Pretty hard floor. This triumvirate here, I love this trio. Coming in drunk, looking for Oliver. Hey, look, Laura got a speaking line. Again, Laura's she works on a number of Hollywood films. She was working on something with Orlando Bloom recently, so she was one of our other legitimate Hollywood talents, as well as, I think it's Trevor Thomas. He was our makeup guy. Set. Kate did some of the makeup, too. Their eyes, that scene with them at the table, just came out so iconic. I was so happy with their performances. Eric doing like his 1920s style, like movie indication drunk walk. Pretty good. Echo. All right, so that ceiling is actually modeled after a steam room in Lightner Museum in St. Augustine. You got to go to St. Augustine sometime. That's all I'm saying. Florida, it's awesome. And I like this idea of the orchestra kind of like trying to keep up live with a film. So sometimes things sync up pretty close, and sometimes they're just in the ballpark. All right, so we have some impressionistic music here. I liked getting to do that in the film. I never get to do it. Impressionistic music is difficult because it can't ever really point anywhere. I'm using these whole tone scales and these half whole scales and trying to never make them point to some sort of resolution until they resolve randomly. That Graves logo looks like a spider on his face. I love the way that that came out. Okay, Falling Upwards into Love is the song. Obviously, we don't use the whole song in the film. There's Tiffany. Again, this is more of that stuff where she's just got to communicate like that she knows what's going on, right? And she's like one of the only people who really knows Oliver's full story and what he's planning here. Not that she knows anything about the spirit of the moon, but she knows where he's taking off on a rocket. My parents walking down the street in St. Augustine, but they're still actually on set, but that is a street in St. Augustine. Okay, pay attention to brooches in this film. The spider brooch, these things, something to do with the character's identity, tells you a little more backstory about them. So TJ Hester right there, talk about him for a minute, because he did some of the 2D photography for the sets for me, so he actually took that picture of that wall that's behind him. We went down to St. Augustine, had a couple of drinks, held snakes. It was fun. There were snakes on the street. It was weird. A lot of these shots too, if you ever watch the Peter Jackson King Kong, like I got some of the ideas for some of the angles from that film. Now we go all the way out to the edge of the city to see what life is like there, and not quite as affected. All right, and so this blast off, I really didn't want it to feel like a countdown. I wanted to feel like there was a sequence he had started that was sort of out of his control at this point. So I want that to come kind of unannounced. You know, that like he didn't really, like the program running doesn't really care about what's happening around it. The program doesn't care for people, if you want to look at it that way. We fired big fans up here. You can't really see with them. You can see a little more with Tiffany where her hair gets blown away. We just shifted right into her face. There's so much wind in people's face on this film. Really, really love Lance playing this kind of subtly. Like, what's up there? The doctor. He's sort of a little more stoic, but concerned. All right, reflections. Obviously, the moon reflects the sunlight. The water reflects the moon. Reflections are an important part of the story. I'm not going to give too much of it away, but you know, he looks at himself in a mirror here, and you know, what did he just do? And he's focused upwards. He's not focusing on what he just did. So, like, I needed this scene so you would almost forget for a second how bad he's being. So you can see things from his perspective. And so by forcing you seeing him in a mirror, it automatically kind of resets your mindset. So this angle is important because he's heading up into the heavens or heading up above. And so he's not really, we don't realize it, but the moon is above you, and depicting this way almost seems backwards for people, but it's definitely the right idea for the movie. Okay, so back to this theme from Memento Mori in the beginning, but it's a more heavenly version of that. So there's that other theme I mentioned earlier using the Tristan chord. That theme is different every time you hear it. It's the same notes, but different supporting structures because it's building towards its revelation in a moment. I watched a lot of like older films that had to do with space, and so I was really excited to pick this. Wanted to make the rotation of the stars consistent so that so lighting is really important to us. Like, where's the sun in the shot? Where are the lights in the shot? It's because we had a light on the green screen. So later, the sun wouldn't be bouncing around in the sky. It's because the angle the sun's coming from is very important in this. It's setting on the opposite side than it would normally set on Earth. It's one setting in the east. And not that you really need to know that. But in the temple, like, you can see that there's a light side and then the dark side is starting to fall apart, a little foreshadowing. And we cut back to the exact shot we used earlier when she was going up to the tree. And so we're supposed to be reminded of him climbing up with his lantern. But also there was that theme again, the Tristan chord we just heard, that I was exploring in a more realized version of it. Amadea's intensity and creepiness. She is not like this in real life, but she nailed it on set, and that's what it means to act. These are moments you have to remember to include in your story where you're doing the right callbacks at the right time. Otherwise, they'll get too disconnected. You don't know what's in their memory and what they remember from earlier. So it's important as a filmmaker and an editor to manage the audience's memory. The little brooch is glowing. Very different version of her. We don't explain why. I know why, but there's a very different version of how she was kind of compassionate and sweet and caring and involved in Oliver. And here she's completely stoic and he's almost just a distraction she has to tolerate for a moment. That was an important question to ask, I think, for Oliver's perspective. You don't want him falling in love with a little girl, but he's expecting her to grow up like he did, but there's clearly something different going on the moon. These score elements were a blast too, because the orchestra finally, I was using like a smaller chamber size orchestra in the beginning, but now it's fully realized, full sections, full orchestra, so the heavens became more realized, the music becomes more realized. Also, when I use voices, okay, that's my oldest daughter's story, by the way, standing perfectly still. She's like the full moon, light directly on her face. Now we get to meet the queen. Musical theme I hadn't used at any other point. So one of the things you're going to want to notice is Kate was actually shot at 60 frames a second and then adjusted to 24 frames a second after. So she had to perform a lot of these actions faster than they appear. So they would be timed up. Now, finally, that one Tristan chord theme we added earlier, that's the full version of it. We see what that mystery was alluding to. At this moment, people realize why it's a silent film that I'm trying to create. I use the lack of sound to create an extra level of distance between the Queen and Oliver. And to exaggerate that as a film scorer, I give Oliver no representation musically here in this scene. The music, of course, is, arrhythmic, and it can't be, you can't really time it out, and it's atonal. So Amadea there is shot in 24 frames a second. Kate's at 60. So we had to, time those shots up and the movements in those shots. But so if you listen, when Oliver goes to talk, so she has a voice, but to make him seem even more silent when he speaks, there's no music at all. Okay. Little film scoring trick there. I feel like I need to whisper here. I don't want to make the Queen mad. So what is she telling her? She's been watching him all along. Who knows?
Yes, you have.
Again, the lighting angles matter. So we had to light people with that in mind. So the Queen's always lit on one half, like a half-lit moon, as the sun descends. That's probably my favorite shot in the film right there. I think the lighting and the we projected that aqua pattern on her face to show the empathy between the moon and the waters and their similarities and their femininity. He's wrong. He does have a rival.
Your colors are
This was great because we had to like amp up the texture and grit on Kate's face here, so I can return it back to her its smoother state when she turns into the sun. Again, more foreshadowing trying to do here. All these shots are in the script, by the way. Where the position of the sun was, how far it was down. We had to time up all these visuals to show that the moon was getting darker and darker. One of the shots we did a pickup and we forgot to put the black shoes that he put on because he has his white shoes the whole movie because they have symbolic importance. And we shot it with the white shoes, and then Pete had to go and make the shoes dark later. God bless him. That rocket, by the way, okay, that's another creation of Chad Nuss and Sophie James. She did the modeling. It was, I don't know, it just fit the era so well. Every little thing matters, though. That staff, what's on it? Queen is presenting she's the embodiment of an enigma. Okay, so the dark side of the moon, the sun has gone away. You know, I've already been foreshadowing what would happen when that happened. Took me a while to find this sound effect where it really made her sound like she was turning into something like bronze. These are hard scenes to portray as an actor. He's just walking around a green room with a bunch of us, like, staring at him and shouting directions. There's going to be too much to talk about here and too much I want to say, so I'll just kind of ride it out with you. Now, I actually did the animation sequence for this part. Pete helped smooth it out later. I had a very specific idea of how I wanted this to go down. You know, fire, snow, rain, heat, cold, all at the same time. My daughter's on fire. They had no idea. Okay, those squid legs, all the squid stuff, that's a real squid. That's like one we got from the fish market. And it was disgusting. It smelled terrible. It was, I did that like kind of hand animated it. Reestablishing the gun. These are things you got to think about, and if you're especially going to capture an older film style. So that's just a real. I shot it in slow motion. A real little squid leg just getting thrown on the ground. Cut it off of the dead squid meant for eating. Took me a while. It's actually an octopus. It took me a while to eat octopus again after this. It was just such a horrifying experience. Don't want to get into the details, but I was traumatized. Returning back down, heading back down to Earth. Okay, so this is just being pulled on a screen on a little green piece of paper on the floor. It's getting pulled, with a little string. Sorry, not screen. And again, Pete helped me put those shots together, and he did a great job. This version of Come Yesu I might release eventually. The film version is different than the record version. Okay, the animals. That was a last minute thought that was not in the script. But, it has importance. So his leaving didn't go so well, and maybe he wasn't planning on coming back. Okay, so there's a return to the same place where he dropped the lantern off the cliff. Right on the edge of the ocean there. And the little lantern. Oliver returns to the shore. The space between, the oceans of the abyss and the land we build on. So this is the third type of lens, but I don't want to give too much away. It was fun playing these scenes with Ransom. He's a good sport, my son. Derek just captured this perfectly. Again, he's just laying on a floor with like TJ and Pete and myself, just kind of barking directions at him. TJ's filming. They might notice the camera never moves in the film, but I'm kind of hoping like that we did enough with each frame where it's like a painting where you don't even think about that, because that's a lot of old films. It's just like shooting a play. And so that was part of the idea. And also it helped make the film less expensive to do the VFX later, because I don't have to track the backgrounds to moving cameras and stuff and whatnot. So, okay, so a bunch of my friends here coming out. My mom and dad, the mayor, and obviously the Biscuit Boys are there. And this is Chris Jackson, Nicole Jackson, and that's Mary. Oh, just forget her last name. Sorry, Mary. I'm drawing a blank. I have to go too fast. My mom and dad nailing it. So sad. Rocks and stones, like Einstein said that World War III, he doesn't know what it'll be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. As the sun rises behind them, the rivalry is over. Blood-covered Queen of the Night. Oh, the dreaded question mark. There it is. There is a second story for this, but I will never make it. It's in my head, though. It's all part of the what happens after in the Grave City. So these are those shots I was talking about earlier that Clay Cook took. The stills, some of them I had to capture from the movie because we didn't have stills for the actors, like the one for Kate. Hey, look at that handsome gentleman. Huxley. Look up the name Huxley, see what it means. Then look up the song Penelope Graves. Adam and Dave were a great tandem. Good friends in real life, too. Soleil and Ransom. My kids, now people ask, why didn't you use their last names? I'm like, well, the girls might get married one day and not have their own last name, or they might want to have a career independent of my name, so I just use their first and middle names. There's my Biscuit Boys. They used to run a biscuit company before this movie. That's part of the story. Mike Foster and Trisha Jewell. My reporters, perfectly done. My mom and dad, they're great people. Look at them. Clay Cook, if you know the name Ace Bourbon, if you know Clay, you'll know why. You'll know why. And Courtney and Lance. Yeah. Josh, Dave, Marina, and Tyler, all excellent musicians in real life. Jeremy Booth is worth mentioning here. I mentioned him. Oh, Mary Taylor. There it is. Oh, sorry, Mary. Jeremy Booth is a fantastic visual artist, and he does a lot with NFTs, and he has a really great kind of film noir style to his 2D, like, vector-looking art. It's probably not a fair description, but... Okay, so... This is another way, like, we're talking about managing memory. If I want to convince people to stay for the credits. Credits matter. Like, we just saw the executive producer was my brother and his wife, Crystal and Adam. And so here I'm trying to kind of coax people into watching through the film, because you get to refresh your memory on the events that just happened if you actually watch it. So, and then hopefully take a peek at the credits. My art department. Chad Nuss is the Silence Arts. And his comic books are amazing. Sophie James is, well, I don't even want to say her socials. That might be a private account. So, but she's an incredible artist. She's kind of a Renaissance woman all around. Music department, like I said, you can hear my kids doing the da-da-das there. I just coax them in and bribe them to do music with me when I need kid voices. Shelly Anderson's worth mentioning. She does she does all of our mastering since the Raven Locks. And Shelly has an awesome set of ears, and if you need mastering, go to Black Lab Mastering. Jonathan Peugeot, obviously some of you know who he is. Jonathan's a great dude, IRL, and really brilliant mind, one of the best minds of our generation. That might be saying a lot, but I feel like I could make an argument for that. Had a lot of help from props departments. A lot of people donated stuff. We had a very low budget, and I don't know how Laura made it work, but she did. The Biscuit Boys are my grips. Hey, Rebecca Elliott, Adam Elliott's wife, who played Lucretius, she did some spell checking for me, thank God. I'm the worst at that. Flagler College, St. Augustine, the Ledyard Museum, and Stone River Farms in LaGrange, Kentucky. Those are the backgrounds. Again, come to St. Augustine sometime. It's amazing. There's my producers, well, like associate producers type roles. These are people who gave top tier support on Patreon or donated something to the film and its use. And I want to thank all of them. I love the people that are still supporting us on Patreon. We don't do anything with our Patreon. It's just open for people to want to buy us dinner some nights or coffee or whatever. Like your support helps us focus on music and not have to worry about other things in life. And the copyright information, very interesting stuff here. Read it closely. It's fun to end your film and credits with a threat against criminals who want to pirate your material. It's a fitting ending. Remember, it is capitalism after all. So that's it. And thank you for sticking with me. This was fun. This was actually it's pretty hard to talk over the film and decide on the fly which things I want to mention and which ones I don't. But I appreciate you sticking through it with me. I could probably do like 3 more of these and still not said enough. So anyway, that's it for today. And we've got more coming for you in the future. And follow us on all of our normal places. Please like and subscribe if you haven't to our channel. It really helps us a ton. Even following us on Spotify, if you listen there, that actually helps us communicate with you and stay in touch. So that's it. Check out our store, dirtpoorrobins.com. We've got lots of things for you to buy and ways to help support us. And of course, as always, share it with a friend. Thank you for listening.